Governor Kevin Stitt's Operation Clearing Homeless Encampments in Tulsa sent shockwaves through Oklahoma City.
The governor's message to those facing homelessness is simple. You can seek treatment and a shelter, or you can go to jail.
Bulldozers were back, wiping away a homeless encampment in Norman this morning.
Now, this is part of Governor Stitt's Operation Safe initiative.
It is the same encampment we told you about a week ago that was completely rebuilt after the governor's program wiped it away earlier this year.
Governor Kevin Stitt is following through on promises to restore what he calls order and safety in Tulsa. And he's doing that by clearing homeless encampments from state-owned property within the city.
The state says Operation Safe is about protecting public land and restoring safety. ODOT crews and state troopers cleared 21 sites on Friday alone, removing more than 206,000 pounds of trash, hazardous waste, and even stolen materials.
We're missing the point in all of this. You know, we can't incarcerate our way out of homelessness.
$123,873.90. That's how much Oklahoma Chief Operating Officer David Ostro says was spent to clean up homeless encampments during Governor Kevin Stitt's Operation Safe in just Tulsa city limits nearly a year ago.
Oklahoma Governor's Office threatens to invoice Tulsa and Oklahoma City for Operation Safe. Operation Safe was the governor statewide took state troopers and cleared out homeless encampments on state-owned land that cities had allowed to just flourish. What this podcast is the polar opposite of build it and they will come. This is the pushback that makes Oklahoma have so few homeless. We're going to compare Oklahoma to California and also to Seattle, where I live, and King County, which is where Seattle is located. Let's get into it. Here we go. So Operation Safe happened late last year, end of 2025. Governor Stitt basically said, hey, if you individual cities, if Norman, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City, if you guys can't get your crap together, I'm sending in the state troopers. They're going to toss people, and we're going to put all their stuff in the dump. And that's what they did. And now those same cities have allowed homelessness to come right back. And the governor is saying, hey, that money we spent, we're going to invoice you for Operation Safe. Take that. How about them apples? And now they're going, oh, no. Now, you might think, why is the state battling Tulsa? Why is the state battling Oklahoma City? Why is the state battling Norman? Well, those are your only major big population centers in all of Oklahoma. Big geographic state, but no population centers. And every time you get into the high population centers, that's where all the Democrats are. That's where all the bleeding heart liberals are. That's where all the libtards are. And that's where your services are for the homeless. And so city officials oftentimes are less Republican. They are less conservative, and especially in Norman, Oklahoma, because that's University of Oklahoma, right? It's a college town. College towns are always progressive. Oh, we know better. So they allow more homelessness. Oklahoma City has the population. They've got the services. They allow more homelessness. Same thing with Tulsa. But the numbers are absolutely shocking. In California, you have homelessness somewhere around 185,000 people. Official. So that means you probably got at least 250,000 of, unofficial that you can't count them all. So you got 250,000 in all of Oklahoma. You've got a little over 5,000. 36 times more homeless in California than Oklahoma. Now, some of the factors there are weather. Good Lord, this week, I talked to my dad this morning in OK City, 108 degrees. It's been burning hot there. Weather, brutal if you're a homeless person. I mean, not sustainable, right? You can't live in a tent in Oklahoma. It's not going to go well for you. You're going to die, right? So you got weather. You've also got a makeup of people that they don't tolerate homelessness. The governor, very conservative, relentless enforcement of the law. And we're gonna hear about that in a second. Doesn't tolerate it. He's like, no, We're not doing this. We're not doing the whole homeless, just let them live wherever they want. Not doing that. Not doing that. Also, you don't have the pervasive drug culture in Oklahoma, homelessness. From what I have seen, and these are just my observations, because I kind of go out of my way to take a look and study what's going on with the homeless population. Because you have much more affordable housing in Oklahoma than you do in California, less people are homeless because they can figure out a way to take their welfare check and make a go of it. Now, so the vast majority that I have seen have been people of color that are homeless in Oklahoma. That's just a straight up observation. And there are very few. There's 5,000 total. You've got maybe 1,800 in Oklahoma City. 1,800 people in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is the size of Los Angeles. It is that big. Los Angeles has, I think, 66,000 homeless people. 66,000 homeless people versus 1,800. And when I say 1,800, a fraction of that is unhoused, right? Because a lot of those people are in transitional housing, whatever. So Governor Stitt basically says, hey, we enforce the law here. We enforce the law, which is not done in California. It's not done in Oregon. It is not done in Washington State. So to see a governor basically saying, hey, cities, clean up your act. Otherwise, we're going to come in and clean your clock. And that's what he's effectively done. Now, some people say, that's an overreach. And Governor Stitt basically says, we're enforcing the law. Period. What a novel concept. Novel concept. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt is threatening to invoice Tulsa and Oklahoma City police departments for costs associated with clearing homeless encampments on state land. Now, this makes big news in Oklahoma City. You are literally talking in these clearings of Oklahoma, Tulsa, and Norman, maybe 40 or 50 campers. It's a joke. It's a joke compared to the absolute sheer numbers. I mean, you might see a few hundred in an encampment here in Washington State. King County has 16,000, 18,000 homeless people. Seattle has 9,000, close to 10,000 homeless people. So literally double the number of homeless people in Seattle than the entire state of Oklahoma. Build it and they will come. Enforce the law and they will not. Neither municipality, Tulsa or Oklahoma City, has received formal charges, but they were told the state will pursue every available avenue to fine them if local police departments fail to enforce the laws and address unlawful encampments. The threats stem from a controversial initiative called Operation Safe. I love that. I mean, hey, we're making our parks safe. We're making our state lands safe. Under which Stitt has ordered state troopers to forcibly clear encampments in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Norman. State officials estimate that encampment sweeps cost more than $500 in Tulsa and $375 in OK City. Norman has not received a similar estimate. Sweeps began in Tulsa in mid-September last year. The rapid enforcement measure came as a surprise to Tulsa leadership and local homeless service providers who have criticized its effectiveness in functionally improving homelessness. It's not meant to functionally improve homelessness. It is meant to enforce the law. Build it and they will come. Pacific Northwest, West Coast, Best Coast. Enforce the law, Oklahoma. They will go elsewhere. That's ultimately the bottom line here. Because if you're homeless in Oklahoma, I mean, why wouldn't you make your way to Portland? Why wouldn't you make your way to San Francisco if you can? Why wouldn't you make your way to Seattle? I mean, it's just straight up. And I know a lot of those people don't have the resources to do that, but that's what you're seeing. During encampment sweeps, people experiencing homelessness can lose important documents. Okay, this is NPR, so National Propaganda Radio, which lost funding because it's so one-sided to the libtards. So you lose important documents like IDs or birth certificates that are often required to get a job or obtain housing. You know, this argument goes down the same argument as married women can't get IDs to vote because their married name versus their maiden. You know what I mean? These people are given plenty of time to move their possessions. They choose not to because they choose not to. Some of them are whacked out on drugs. Other of them are just like, oh, we can't really work out what we're doing. And that happens. They get warned, though. They have sufficient warning. But invariably, with the homeless encampment sweep, there are going to be the, proponents of homelessness who say, oh, we weren't told it was. Nah, it's been posted for how long? They posted on your tent for how long? And then you're surprised when they show up and put your tent in a dumpster. You know what I mean? Yeah. Stitt has championed Operation Safe since its launch. He said the move is not about solving homelessness, but rather about enforcing the law. Brings a little tear to my eye, right? And I'm not saying, hey, we want to toss all the homeless out, just, get rid of all their tents. No, it's about keeping public lands available to the public. You can't just camp willy-nilly. And there are provisions within Operation Safe to get people into housing, right? But some people just don't want to do that. And in Oklahoma's case, when that happens, under the initiative, state troopers are dispatched to encampment sites on state land. Everyone they encounter is required to leave the area, and any possessions that remain are gathered up and thrown away. Not stored, thrown away. Push back. You can't camp willy-nilly wherever the F you want in Oklahoma. We're going to toss your shit. And that's what they do. I mean, it's so basic. It's so basic. And yet people here on West Coast, Best Coast, just basically have their head up there, you-know-what. Just let them live wherever. Like Tulsa, neither Oklahoma nor City or Norman leadership asked for Stitt to bring the operation to their city. Of course not. Because they're tolerant of homelessness. They're like, oh, the poor homeless. Yeah, whatever. Now Stitt's office is threatening Tulsa and Oklahoma City with possible related charges. In the letters, Oklahoma Chief Operating Officer David Ostro said Operation Safe was a necessary measure because Tulsa and Oklahoma City are failing to address encampments. Could you imagine having a governor that actually cares about the people, the constituents, and their ability to use parks, public lands, not have to look at tents and whacked out people underneath bridges? Nah, they either arrest them, they get them to mental institutions, they get them to treatment, or they get them to whatever kind of available housing they have, whether that's congregate housing or whatever. Not a lot of tiny camps in Oklahoma. Don't believe in that. Hey, here's your shelter. This is what we're doing. It's illegal to camp on state property, but there is confusion about which agencies are responsible for and legally permitted to enforce the state's camping ban. State government is not Oklahoma City's cleanup crew, and state taxpayers should not be required to subsidize the municipal policy of non-enforcement. So what they're basically saying is, hey, just because the city allows them to camp willy-nilly wherever doesn't mean that the state taxpayers versus individual city taxpayers should be responsible because the local police are just like, it's okay. We're a big city problems, homelessness. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. All right. So you got 500,000, you got 375 for Oklahoma City and Tulsa for cleanup. And then you got a bunch of other stuff here talking about housing, and state made a decision to conduct a large-scale cleanup of property that it owns and maintains. It's difficult to understand how the city of Tulsa then becomes financially responsible for that cleanup simply because the state wants to be reimbursed for their own expenses. Well, because you allowed the homelessness back on state lands. And so therefore, come on, guys. Here we go. Let's keep going. We got a handful of articles here. Governor Stitt touts clearing homeless camps in Tulsa. Providers say efforts cause traumatic experience. You're going to have trauma because you've got people living illegally. People that get offered housing all the time and they don't want to take it. And this is what happens. Homeless individuals will either be transported to a treatment/housing facility or taken to jail if they refuse help. That's how Oklahoma handles it. Now, you're just not going to mess around with that. It's like, here's the line. It's drawn. You want to violate the line? All right, then you go to jail. That's what we're doing. After the encampment will be cleared out by the state, Stitt wrote next to a video panning over temporary structures, people and their belongings, posted on multiple platforms. I didn't see this one earlier. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's pretty messy. Yeah, in the forest, of course. God, look at that tarp. Yeah, I mean, not good, right? Not good. Just standard. It's one of the many videos in a stream of posts emphasizing the governor's efforts to fix the disaster homeless people on every corner turned the city into. When I go to Oklahoma City and visit my parents, there are very, very few homeless people because the governor and state leadership is continually hammering on the issue and making it so difficult that people know you can't just live willy-nilly and do your thing. Whereas in Seattle, I mean, we bend over backwards to give them all the paraphernalia they need, to the point where Labor and Industries is right now looking into Andrea Suarez and her We Heart Seattle program for not responsibly and safely disposing of needles that the government hands out in Washington State, in King County, in Seattle. Government hands out a whole bunch of needles and then gets upset when a nonprofit goes back and picks them up. They're like, we need to make sure you have adequate training for that. Polar opposite from what we're doing here. Absolute polar opposite. Democrat states, they are breaking down their own societies. They're breaking them down. There's no other explanation. So which one do you want to live in? Weather, Seattle, way more mild than Oklahoma. Oklahoma, it's going to have 30-something days over 100. I mean, the record is, I think, 60-something back in 2011. I mean, just blazing hot. And then in the winter, it's cold with those winds that come off the plains. Weather is not Oklahoma's strong point. But as far as homelessness and state policy goes, very conservative in Oklahoma. Operation Safe has moved from Tulsa to Oklahoma City. Here's how they compare and differ. In late October, Governor Stitt announced Operation Safe. Not only did the initial Tulsa initiative surprise many vulnerable individuals without permanent housing, but it also caught service providers. Okay, we heard about that. They utilized trucks and bulldozers to clear camps with assistance from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. That only happens in Seattle as an absolute last resort. Some little kids got to get, virtually raped in order for that to happen. And the perfect example of that is, the homeless encampment in Seattle. I met Jeremy Harris at Como out there. That was the University Bridge. And Jay Inslee actually came up during the clearing of the encampment so that he could proclaim victory and say, hey, see what we're doing? We're doing some stuff. Well, Oklahoma does it just as a matter of enforcing the law. And then cities get pissed off and they're like, Operation issued the ultimatum from Oklahoma patrol officers. Either go to jail, undergo transportation to a treatment facility, or a housing facility. Only one person accept a ride to a shelter. They're like, nah, no thanks. Yeah, we don't want to. We want to just do our own thing. And that's where the governor, I think, is right. Because these people, if they wanted to, they could accept shelter. But they choose not to. For various reasons. Here in the Pacific Northwest, oftentimes, because they want to just keep doing the drugs. Oklahoma City version, bit different. Works with existing social services and already manages an encampment rehousing initiative. They've got a little bit more in the way of social services in OK City because it's just a bigger population base, right? It's not a big town, but geographically it's massive. And you see very few homeless people outside of the downtown core area where you've got just a couple of these social services programs. So, Cave's emphasized Operation Safe partnership with Key Home is more focused on long-term solutions rather than just enforcement. So you've got some of this back and forth of, hey, we're trying to figure out what we're doing. And again, this is NPR. The experience for those experiencing homelessness. This virtually gets no coverage otherwise in Oklahoma other than the libtard or news organizations, because this is business as usual. This is just, hey, you can't break the law here, and if you do, we're going to get you. That's, does Oklahoma have a bunch of crime? It does have crime. It does. I mean, you've got some murder rates that you're like, ooh, that's not good. But it's specific populations. So, it's kind of like, all right, here's what we're doing. This is what we're doing here. This is going on here. But homelessness, it's not tolerated. It's not a thing. State clears homeless camp in Norman, but has offered no housing funds for displaced residents. Well, to me, that's because the state is always battling with Norman because Norman is a libtard city. It's a university town. They've always got and you're talking in a state that basically votes red across the board. And these cities also, by and large, vote red across the board. But you get into the inner districts, the more multicultural inner districts in the downtowns, and you've got some liberals. You've got some progressives. You've got some of the fancy pants that want to rework the homeless thing. And they're like, what are you doing to us? And so that's why Governor Stitt with Norman, he's just like, hey, go F yourselves. Yeah, we're not offering you money. You guys are challenged anyway because you got the University of Oklahoma and, they've just gone down this route. So here's interesting. So cleared a highway patrol cleared a homeless encampment where an estimated 30 to 50 people were residing. That is a massive encampment in Oklahoma. In Seattle, that is a 1 block radius on Northwest Leary in Ballard. 1 block. And I've shot that video. I've shot that many tents. Just, all right, this is what they're doing. And you know what? There's no enforcement of the law. And as a result, local homes, local businesses, the break-ins are constant. And here in Seattle, it's all based on drugs. It's based on drugs. You don't have that in Oklahoma because they have an enforcement of the law. They don't tolerate hard drugs. Get arrested for that stuff. Doing what was it? I saw a video this morning of a homeless woman in downtown Seattle just smoking up the crack pipe or whatever it was, maybe a little fetty, right in front of a cop car. And you know what? Nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens. Why is that? There's no enforcement of the law. Not enough cops. Cops are too busy out trying to prevent murders and rapists and, real crime instead of doing the drugs. Build it and they will come. Enforce the law and they will not. Attorney General comments on Governor Stitt's warning to 3 Oklahoma cities. So this was published today. So he's warning the 3 cities, hey, I'm going to fine you. I'm going to ask for funds to be recouped for Operation Safe. Because you guys are just allowing the homeless to come right back. And the Attorney General, who is a little less conservative, says, no, it's not. I think you can send it back. Drummond made the comments at last week's governor's forum. And just destroying their tents and their government cards and their pots and pans is not curing homelessness. Stitt told nonprofit news organization The Frontier last year that the goal behind Operation Safe was to enforce the law, not solve homelessness. Now, advocates for the homeless are going to always say, but you're not doing anything by clearing out the encampments. Well, from a long-term standpoint, I would disagree. You are pushing back. By enforcing the law, you are pushing back and saying, we will not tolerate this. We prioritize our citizens. We prioritize our taxpayers over the will of liberals who just want to allow people to live willy-nilly, do all the drugs they want, and just pretend that human feces, dirty needles, dirty tinfoil with fentanyl residue, abuse of animals, stealing from the community, stealing from local businesses to fund their drug habits, instead of pretending all of that is just okay and normal and you just ignore it. By enforcing the law, you are basically saying, no, we're not okay with that. And you know, pushing back is so much of the issue. Here in Seattle, we don't do that. And so that's how Seattle, you know, has XYZ number of times more than the entire state of Oklahoma homelessness. You know, it's one of those things where the numbers speak for themselves, right? And facts don't care about your feelings. Well, I feel like we should do this. Yeah, all right, okay. What do the numbers say? Yeah. 1,800 homeless in Oklahoma City, 1,100 homeless in Norman versus LA, 66,000. Seattle, 9,000. King County, 16,000, whatever those numbers are. It's insane. You tell me. You tell me which one works, which one doesn't. Proof is in the pudding, right? Okay. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for joining. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.